My name is Pete Wright, and my wife and I have the Wrightslaw.com website and published a number of books about special education law and advocacy. Today we're going to talk about the military child and the PCS, permanent change of station, the legal issues, resources for the parent, and steps that need to be taken prior to a PCS. But for background, that's a picture of my son when he graduated from Fort Benning from jump school, and later when he was in Iraq for 15 months and he was the aide-de-camp to a commanding general, and that's the Golden Mosque in Iraq. And now he was a JAG officer when he went over there, and he's a JAG officer now. Let's talk about the military child. The military child moves on average every 2.9 years. Attends a number of schools before graduation. I've heard anywhere from 5 to 12 schools before graduating. There are a number of stressors that are on the military family. I can tell you from personal experience with my son being in Iraq for 15 months, you wake up every morning wondering if something happened and scanning all of the news reports, even news reports overseas. When the military parent is deployed, they are frequently wired very tight in order to survive. At the same time, the parent at home, single parent, head of household, raising children, and one with a disability, they too are wired very tight and have to wear the pants in the family. And when the deployed spouse comes back to the States, what happens so often is that conflict is normal because each person really had to be very strong when they were separated, and upon return, so often alcohol becomes a factor, domestic abuse becomes a factor, and you read in the paper every day about the suicides. It is a nightmarish experience for both the mother and the father, regardless of which one is deployed. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the legal issues with regard to the permanent change of station and when the family is moving from one state to another. But before I do that, we're going to take a look at the website, our Wrightslaw.com website in the military page, and also that there is a discount for the military family. This is the Wrightslaw.com website, and if we scroll down on the left-hand side, you'll see the law library. We have the statute IDEA 2004 here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so it won't be quite so small on your screen. And further down on the left-hand side, we have military DoDI's. Click on that page, and that's the index page. There's a paragraph here that says PCS, the military parent must read these two articles by Lieutenant Colonel Elizabeth Schuss-Gopal, and we'll take a look at those shortly. And then also I have a handout. The other page that I want to show you is the military discount page. This is the military discount page. If you are in the military, you can get a discount on our products. And this is the page you have to order, though, using the information on that page. In IDEA 2004, 20 United States Code, Section 1414 D2C, it explains that children with an IEP who move from one jurisdiction to another are entitled to a comparable IEP in the new school district. Now, if you have our law book, go ahead and take it out and turn to page 102, and I want you to write down there on that page, DoDEA School, see DoDI 1342.12. We're going to look now at page 102. This is the cover of the law book, and down several pages we have the table of contents. The complete statute is right here in chapter 5. This is page 102 of the law book, and it's the part about IEPs. I'll go back a couple pages so you can see what precedes this. Subsection D is all about IEPs. Subsection 1 are the definitions. Subsection 2 are requirements, and we are interested in subsection C C of 2, Program for Children Who Transfer School Districts. Under I, then a capital letter I, transfer within the same state and transfer outside of a state. And what it says in both sections is the same thing with one difference. But for our purposes, they both say this, including services comparable. So going back to the beginning, in the case of a child with a disability who transfers school districts within the same academic year, who enrolls in a new school, and who had an IEP in effect in another state, the LEA shall provide such child with FAPE, free appropriate public education, including services comparable to those described in the previously held IEP. And the one difference is until the new agency conducts an evaluation. So this is a between-state transfer outside of state, and this is a within-state transfer. Now the key word is the word comparable. And right here in the footnotes, we explain, the commentary explains that the Department of Education interprets comparable to have the plain meaning of the word, which is similar or equivalent. And that's in the commentary in the Federal Register, and that commentary is on our website. Just reviewing what it says, in the case of a child with a disability who transfers school districts within the same academic year in a new school, the LEA shall provide services comparable to those in the previously held IEP. That was the statute we were looking at. Now we'll look at the regulation. That's page 248, and it's Regulation 34, Code of Federal Regulations 300.323. And again, if you have our law book, write down what you see right here at the bottom of the slide on page 248. You'll have it in a couple places. Always cross-reference everything. So this is page 248, and we are in 300.323. Then it has subsection A, subsection B, going down to C, initial IEPs, D, accessibility of the IEP to the teachers, and then the critical ones for us here on page 249, E and F, and the language here is identical to the language in the statute, and it talks about including services comparable to those described. So the statute and the regulation are basically identical, and we have more here about transmittal of records, etc. There is another legal document of sorts or entity, and that's called the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission, known as MIC3, and its goal is to have some consistency across the board for the military child as the child moves from one state to another. The website is www.mic3.net, and we'll look at that now. This is the website, mic3.net. If we click on the Resources tab, as I'm doing here, and go to the Rules, and we have a lengthy document, and so what I'll do to find the information quickly, let me zoom in a little bit, is I'll do Control F or Command F, depending upon whether it's a Windows or Apple Mac, and I'm going to simply type in the word comparable, and you'll see right here it took me to the key language, and it talks about in compliance with the federal requirements for the special ed law, the receiving state shall initially provide services comparable to the student based upon the current IEP. So MIC3 is an additional resource. Not all states have subscribed to MIC3. There is a link on their website, so you can click on your particular state and see if it is. All of the states in blue are signatories, as they say, to MIC3, and you click on, for example, Virginia, North Carolina, it'll tell you who is the particular representative in your state. The two words comparable services are in the special ed statute, IDEA, and the regs, but also in MIC3. On our website, you want to be sure that you read a couple articles by Lieutenant Colonel Elizabeth Shooks Gopal, so we'll go there now. All right, back at the main page, the home page, we'll scroll down. On the left-hand side, we will click on the Military Department of Defense link, and we see the paragraph PCS, the military parent must read these 2 articles. This is one. Let me open that one up. This is an excellent article about steps to take before you make such a move. This article, Legal Issues Facing Military Families, is again another article that she wrote that is very comprehensive. This is the article she wrote, 12 Things Every JAG Officer Should Know, but actually it is helpful for parents, of course. Very comprehensive. A difficult task for all parents of children with special needs, but it's especially most important for the military family because of the moves, and that is that you have to have your file organized. Chapter 9 of our From Emotions to Advocacy book is about organization of the file, and I also have a YouTube video about organization of the file. This is the first page of our From Emotions to Advocacy book, and the table of contents here, and it's chapter 9 that's all about the file. So we'll look at chapter 9. This is chapter 9, the file, do it right. Do the hard jobs first. The easy jobs will take care of themselves. And then we talk about the steps to take to get a neat, well-organized file. Okay, now we're going to talk about the Special Ed Statute, IDEA 2004, the Special Ed Regs, the DoDI's, Department of Defense Instructions, DoDEA Schools, some of the issues and the differences in the law. And my concern, the military child has fewer rights than the civilian child when the military child enters a DoDEA school, and that's wrong. And you'll see why I say that. The United States Code, 20 U.S.C. 1400, that's a federal statute, and we have the federal regs that were created by the U.S. Department of Education. The U.S. Department of Education does not have any authority or power over the Department of Defense. So the federal regulations do not apply to the Department of Defense, just the statute. The Department of Defense has what are known as DoDI's for the DoDEA schools, and those DoDI's are in 37 Code of Federal Regulations Part 57, and also are part of what's called the Department of Defense Instruction 1342.12. So we'll look at that now. This is the first page of 1342.12, issued April 11, 2005. There are what are called enclosures at the end of it. So we're going to go down to the enclosure. Enclosure 4, Procedures for the Provision of Educational Programs and Services for Children with Disabilities ages 3 through 21 inclusive. And so 4.1 is identification of children, then assessment and evaluation. 4.3 is eligibility. 4.4, IEP. 4.5, implementation of the IEP. And 4.6, this is the key one. 4.6, when a student transfers to a DoDEA school with an IEP from basically a public school, the Child Services Committee shall promptly convene an IEP team meeting to address eligibility and special ed services. And then that team may, not shall, may accept the current IEP, may initiate a meeting to revise it, may initiate an evaluation. So it does not say that the DoDEA school shall provide a comparable IEP. Comparable is not included in the DoDI's in this particular one. So the child coming from a civilian school has no right to a comparable IEP upon entering a DoDEA school. The other significant issue with the DoDEA schools, then, if the military child goes from a public school, let's say in Tampa, St. Pete area, to one in Texas, to a public school, that child is entitled to a comparable IEP. If the child goes to a DoDEA school, the child is not. If the child goes from a DoDEA school to a public school and has an IEP, then the child is again entitled to a comparable IEP in the new public school. The other significant difference is that in a public school, if the parents have a concern about services not being implemented, they can ask for a due process hearing, but more often than not, a better, less expensive approach than litigation is simply filing a complaint with the State Department of Education. Assume the child was supposed to get 3 sessions of speech therapy a week, and the school district only provided 1 because someone was out and they never made up any of the time, and the parent asked them to and they did not. The parent could file a complaint with the State Department of Education, and assuming the facts are clear, then they would be awarded compensatory ed and the services have to be made up. Not true if the child is in a DoDEA school. There is no process permitting or allowing for complaints to be filed. Now, I think if someone does write a letter up to the Pentagon with what's happening in the form of a complaint, it may well be acted on. Hopefully it would be, but there's no formal process for that. The only way is to ask for a due process hearing. I've already shown you the index page. Let's go back and look at another resource on that page. On the military page, we also have a handout that I provide when I do training for military families. This is a 4-page handout. So it has everything here together in one place. It has the comparable IEP statute, the regulation in the Code of Federal Regulations, also the commentary where the Department of Education explained that comparable means similar or equivalent. Another issue that varies around the country is that the timeline for doing an eligibility evaluation is not the same. The law explains that it has to be within 60 days, and that means calendar, of receiving consent. So that's not the request, but it's the consent, or if the state establishes a time frame. And there are different time frames around the country. Not all of them are 60 calendar days. Some of them are a good bit longer. And right here is enclosure 4.6 for a child that transfers into a DoDEA school. You can copy and distribute this. I put a copyright notice here that can be photocopied and reproduced without further permission. And I structured it so pages could be copied individually, not all 4 necessarily. And then there's another page with resources and websites. So the military parent with a special needs child, you really have to have a copy of the law. You should have a copy of the regs. You should have a copy of the commentary that's on our website also. And you want your own state's special ed regs. And assuming you're going to be moving to another state, then you need to get the regs of the new state. And it's very easy to find the regulations. Simply go into Google and put in the name of the state, and then you simply type in special education regulations, and 90% of the time it'll take you right to the regs, or it'll take you to a main page on that State Department of Education's website that has the link to the special ed regs. If you would like to be notified of future YouTube videos posted by Wrightslaw, then go ahead and subscribe to the Wrightslaw channel. We do have a free online newsletter that comes out once a week, and the link to that is on the main front page on the left-hand side. Thank you, and if you have suggestions for improvement or other thoughts, please feel free to share them with me.